Chapter 20. The moment he drove up to the grocery store, AJ knew he was in trouble. First of all, according to the radio report, there was only one victim, a cardiac arrest with possible head trauma from the fall. However, one ambulance was already parked out front along with a fire truck, so either it was worse than the radio said, or he had just driven through noon traffic for nothing. "I've got the stuff," Lerone said, grabbing the bag and sliding from his seat. With the precision that comes with a lot of practice, AJ threw the vehicle in park and jumped out his door. He was racing up to the automatic doors just as the stretcher came out the exit on the other side. In the next heartbeat, Lerone followed it out. "They got it," Lerone said in annoyance. "That's it?" AJ asked. "What's up with the fire truck?" "They were here on a routine walkthrough inspection when the guy keeled over in produce." "Talk about good timing," AJ said, turning with Lerone for the ambulance just as two firefighters walked out of the store behind them. "Well, fancy meeting you here," Gabe said, clapping AJ on the back before AJ even knew he was there. "I should have guessed," AJ said, laughing. "I'd pass out too if I saw you walking by." "Such a funny line from such an unfunny person. What's going on? I hear you and Eve are burning up the town these days." Confusion flashed over AJ as they walked up to the fire truck. "Who told you that?" "Hey, AJ," Jeff said, sneaking up from behind him and goosing him in the ribs. "Long time no see. You hibernating at Eve's these days, or what?" You guys are going to put me out of a job showing up on calls like this," he said, totally clueless as to how to answer their other questions. "Not likely," Gabe said, swinging a leg up into the truck. "Captain Fearless here can't even count to 15. It's not my fault they kept coming on the loudspeaker. Ding, spill on aisle 7. Ding, price check on aisle 2, Jeff said. "Like I said," Gabe said to AJ as he jumped back to the asphalt, "don't quit your day job." AJ laughed, although something warned him not to let them draw him in. "Hey, we haven't had a chance to take your money in a long time," Gabe said. "What's up with that?" "Oh, I've been busy," AJ said, stumbling on the excuse. Jeff smiled knowingly as AJ's heart fell into his shoes. "Well, I'm not one not to notice a lovely lady when I see her," Gabe said. "And believe me, Eve's about as lovely as they come. But you can't hang out with her all the time. The rest of us might get jealous." "You're just saying that because you want my money." "No, well, okay, I am. But what do you say? Tomorrow night? Jeff's about 8:15 or so. There'll be snacks." He wanted to say no. He knew he should say no. But instead, he nodded. "As long as you let me win a few." "Let you win? That's hardly—" "AJ," Lerone called from the ambulance door. "We got another call." "Gotta go," AJ said with a wave. "See you guys tomorrow night." "See ya," Gabe called. "Take care of yourself out there," Jeff called, and AJ waved again just as he jumped into the ambulance. Work was the only thing keeping her sane. Over and over, Eve told herself how important it was to get started on the right foot in this new position. She didn't want the employees under her or the new manager over her to think she wasn't capable and committed to doing the job to the best of her ability. And so it was easy to rationalize the extra hours spent at the store. It wasn't hard to bury herself in the work and pretend like there was no rest of her life. In fact, she had done such a good job of it that when she got home with only a week to go in February, she never so much as questioned the blinking red light on her machine. She punched it and then walked into the kitchen where she slipped off her shoes. "Hey, Eve girl, long time no talk," Lisa said from the machine, and Eve's spirit crashed to the ground on the sound. "Give me a call. We need to catch up, and I want to hear everything. Oh, and poker night tomorrow night. Come on over. I promise I won't make you wallpaper." Lisa signed off, and Eve sat down at the table with a small bottle of water. Lisa wanted to hear everything. Everything. That explained why Lisa hadn't been beating down her door. She still thought everything was great with her and AJ. Better than great by the sound of that message. The ache in Eve's chest knifed through her throat. Telling Lisa would do one of two things. Either confirm Eve's worst fears that AJ wanted nothing to do with her, or make 2 of his good friends hate him forever. As angry as she was at him, she didn't want him to suffer just because he didn't want to go out with her. There were far worse offenses in life than that. And so she decided that making that call could wait, at least until Lisa called back and demanded answers. That moment would come eventually, but it wasn't here yet, and at the moment, that was all that Eve really cared about. 7:30 wasn't that early, but AJ knew he should have at least taken something other than the shortcut to get to Jeff's. As he stood on their front porch and rang the doorbell, the question of what he was doing here at all streaked through him. The fact that someone was bound to bring up the whole Eve subject was more than a distinct possibility, as was the fact that Lisa already knew the whole story and was waiting on the other side of that door to pounce. That thought turned him back down the steps just as the door came open. "Hey there," Lisa said, and AJ knew there was no escaping now. When he turned, the sight of her holding Alex and bouncing him softly tore through him. "Look, Alex, it's AJ. Remember him? He's the one that gave you your favorite hat." Then she stopped talking to the baby and looked at AJ with a smile that held no animosity. "It's good to see you again. Come on in." When he made the top step, Lisa reached over and put her free arm around his neck. He hugged her quickly and then stepped into the entryway as embarrassment heated its way into his ears. "I tried to clean up, but nothing stays clean anymore. Sorry," Lisa said, leading him to the living room. "But have a seat anywhere you can find one." Sheepishly, AJ folded himself onto the couch and shifted when the emptiness of the house invaded his consciousness. "What'd you do, shoot Jeff?" Lisa laughed. "No, he went out for snacks. Seems he had this silly idea that I was capable of going to the grocery store with 50 pounds of baby stuff to lug along. He'll be back in a few minutes." AJ nodded, fighting to think of something else to say. Something normal. Something... "I'm surprised Eve didn't come with you," Lisa said, before he came up with what that something was. He looked for words, but none came. "I guess you two've been tearing up the town since you got back." However, the affirmation of that statement that she had obviously expected wasn't forthcoming. "I mean, I haven't talked to her in like 3 weeks, so I figured." For all the screaming in his brain, the best his body could do was to sit there and rub his hands together as the sweat poured off of them. Her meandering sentence slipped into oblivion. "Is Eve all right?" Lisa finally asked. "Yeah," he said quickly. Then his gaze fell to his hands. "I mean, I guess so. I hope so." "You hope so? What do you guys have, a fight or something?" He couldn't face her. The guilt in the middle of him dragged his gaze to the carpet. "No, we didn't have a fight. Exactly." "You didn't have a fight exactly. What does that mean?" "It's just, I don't know." He shrugged. "I think Eve deserves somebody better than me." "Somebody better? What?" Despite the guilt, he glanced over at Lisa, and instantly tears stung his eyes. He shook his head as his gaze fell. "She doesn't really know me. She thinks she does, but..." Lisa shook her head slowly as if it was spinning. "Okay, I'm lost. When you left New Mexico, you looked like you were about 2 steps from the altar, and now you're telling me that she could do better? How do you figure that?" "It's just..." His hands were rubbing together at a fever pitch. "She thinks I'm this invincible hero, that I can do anything, that I always know exactly what to do. But if she knew the real truth..." He shook his head slowly. "It's all such a lie. All of it. I'm not invincible. I'm not a saint. I'm not even much of a hero. I can't do the impossible, even when doing anything else means that somebody is going to die because I couldn't." "AJ, nobody's asking you to do the impossible," Lisa said gently. "We're just glad you do what you can." Slowly, he shook his head. "You wouldn't say that if you were Eve." "Why not?" Because Dustin..." The memories yanked the tears from his eyes. "I was there the night Dustin died. I rode the ambulance with him. I was new at the time, and I didn't know what I was doing. I should have done something more to help him, something so he could have gone back home to her, so he'd be here for her now." He clamped his lips together to stop the tears. "She doesn't know about that night." He glanced over at Lisa, but could hardly make out her face through the tears. "I can't tell her now. I can't tell her that she lost her husband because I didn't know what I was doing." Slowly, Lisa stood from the chair and stepped over to where he was on the couch. He sniffed back the tears, fighting to get them to stop, but still they came like soldiers over the battle lines. Carefully, she sat next to him and laid a hand on his shoulder that was hunched forward. "Believe me, AJ, Eve knows how hard it is out there. She knows you do your best on every call, and she'll know you did your best that night. She loved him so much, and I let her down. I let you all down." When Lisa spoke again, there were tears welling in her voice. "You know what I remember from that night?" He shook his head. "I remember getting a call from a young guy who knew that Jeff needed somebody there with him because he was in pain, and he was scared, and he was sitting in that hospital all alone with no one to lean on. I really can't imagine how scary that was for him, knowing how bad Dustin was and how much pain he was in himself. But I remember walking in and being so grateful that you'd taken time out to call me. You certainly didn't have to. You could have just left him there like that, just gone on with your work and let the hospital sort it all out. But you didn't do that. You cared enough to go out of your way to help, and I know I'll forever be grateful for that." Lisa sat for a long moment, trying to collect herself. There are things we can do, and there are things only God can do. You did what you could. Don't beat yourself up because you couldn't do his job. All the hours he'd spent ripping into himself about what he could have done or should have done suddenly felt very heavy. "But how can I tell her now? I mean, she trusts me, or at least she did until I stopped calling. I think she's just going to hate me now, no matter what I do." Softly, Lisa laughed. "You underestimate her. Besides, Eve is smarter than that. She knows a good thing when she sees it." "A good thing? Ha! I'm hardly a catch," AJ said, sniffing back the last of the tears. "Besides, she's gorgeous, and I'm such an idiot." "Strange, weird, bizarre, yes. An idiot? I don't think so." The crash of the door brought their attention to it as Jeff walked in, 2 sacks in each hand. Instantly, AJ jumped to his feet. "You need some help?" "There's more in the car," Jeff said. "I'll get it," AJ said, thankful for the interruption. As he walked out to the car, he berated himself. What had he just told Lisa? Lisa, of all people. Sure, she seemed understanding and not at all angry, but still, he must have completely lost his mind at some point in the past. That was the only explanation. The ringing of the phone pulled Eve out of the long, hot shower she was enjoying, and quickly she wrapped a towel around herself and grabbed it. She sat down on the bed. "Hello?" "Hey, Eve girl," Lisa said lightly, and Eve wished she had just let the machine get it. "Hey, Lise." She pushed the wet hair from her face. "What's up?" "Just checking up on my favorite nurse." "Oh, then you must have the wrong number." "No, I don't think so. So, how's life? We haven't seen you in a while." "I figured you'd be bleary-eyed trying to take care of 2 babies at one time," Eve said, just as in the background she heard the card-playing commotion, and her heart sank. She wanted to ask who was there, but it seemed a ridiculous question. More than that, if he was there, it would confirm that he was indeed just fine and going on with life without her. "That's what I was calling about," Lisa said. "I'm in desperate need of a shopping break. This house is driving me crazy." "Have you been back to work yet?" "I went in for a couple of hours this week, but mostly it's been the staff." "Ah, trusting. Scary, huh?" "So what, are we going to take Alex?" "Shopping? I'm not that brave yet. No, Jeff's off, and he's generously agreed to stay home." "And you're not worried he's going to have a keg party while we're gone?" Another cry of defeat in the background. "No, that's tonight," Lisa said with a laugh. "Come on, Eve, save me, please." "Well, if it's life and death and we are talking shopping therapy, I bet I could pencil you in." "That's what I wanted to hear," Lisa said. All evening, AJ's heart listened for the doorbell as his gaze kept vigilant watch over the entryway. For some illogical reason, he had expected Lisa to invite Eve over. True, he didn't want to see her, or his mind kept saying that he didn't. Yet his heart simply wouldn't get in line. It wanted to see her. It did. And that's all there was to it. So it was with soul-bending confusion that he walked out of their house at 1 and drove home. The memories of her smile at 70 miles an hour drilled through him. If he could just find a way to tell her. But what words could he use now? They all seemed so empty, so meaningless in the face of this. Shaking his head at even considering the impossible, he drove past her turnoff and sighed. No, she was better off without him, and he would just have to find a way to live with that. All night, AJ was right there in Eve's dreams, standing on the cabin porch, holding her, skiing, that first night on the couch at Gabe's, over and over so that when she awoke the next morning, she was almost surprised that he wasn't actually beside her. It was absurd to let herself go down that path. He wanted nothing to do with her, and what choice did she have but to abide by that decision? With that unbelievably difficult understanding, she crawled out of bed and went to get ready for the shopping extravaganza with Lisa. "God, help me get through this in one piece," she prayed, as she reluctantly pulled a gold-orange tank top with matching sweater and a form-fitting off-white skirt out of the closet. "How are you with directions?" Jeff asked as AJ sat in his kitchen the next afternoon, having been summoned by his mother from the garage. "Driving directions?" AJ asked in confusion. "No, putting things together directions." "Oh," AJ shrugged. "Not bad. Why?" "Because I want to surprise Lisa with this baby bed, but between feeding Alex and killing my thumb with this stupid screw gun, the only thing that's going to surprise her is the mess." AJ laughed. "Trust me, I don't think she'll be too surprised by that." "Ha ha. Seriously, are you busy?" "Blowing my brains out with a stereo." "Well, come on over here. I've got some headphones you can use to blow your brains out while you work." "How is it I always get to work when I'm around you?" "You're just too talented." "I am, aren't I?" "Yeah, bring that big head and your talent and get over here already." "I'll be there." "I hate this," Lisa called from the other side of the dressing room door. "The dress?" Eve asked with concern. "No, that I'm never going to fit in anything again." "It's only been a month." "That's my point. I hate this." With a snap, Lisa stomped out of the dressing room, leaving the dress in a heap. "Let's go get some ice cream." Eve arched her eyebrows, but said nothing as she followed her friend out of the store. "We could always go see a movie or something." "No, right now I just want a big bowl of Rocky Road ice cream." With a shrug, Eve followed Lisa to one of the mall's food booths. Before she could protest, Lisa bought them both ice cream and handed her one. They found a little table and sat down. "So, tell me about this new job," Lisa said. "Insert piece 37 into the hollow end of A and snap together," Jeff read from his position on the floor where he was holding Alex in one hand and the directions in the other. "Piece 37, AJ said, trying to hold the directions in his mind long enough to accomplish them. "Into the hollow end of A and snap together." Carefully, AJ tried it one way, then took it apart and tried it another. "You know, Alex, if you would just stay in that bassinet thing, we wouldn't be in this mess." "Tell me about it," Jeff said as he bounced his son softly on the cradle of his bent leg. "And you thought painting was bad." AJ mashed his face in concentration as he pushed the two pieces together, finally causing them to snap. "Done?" Jeff asked. "Either done or broken." "Let's hope it's not broken or we get to start over." Why didn't you get one that was at least semi-together?" "Saving money," Jeff said, peering at the next directions. "At this rate, we're going to have to use what you saved on a mental hospital. Slide the side panel together with the foot panel at notches. I really should have my head examined for agreeing to this." Jeff smiled at AJ in victory. "Too late. Slide the side panel." Eve had waited for the AJ bomb to hit all afternoon. Once, when Lisa had mentioned sending Dr. Brealey a thank you card, Eve had known it was coming. But it hadn't. She couldn't quite figure that out until just after 5, they pulled back into Lisa's driveway and parked conspicuously at the curb was the Civic. "Jeff's never going to believe I only bought one dress," Lisa said, acting like she hadn't even noticed. "He'll probably search the car for the rest of the loot." "I could let you hold my shoes, then he'll think you got more than you did," Eve offered, even as her alert mechanisms screamed at her not to go into that house. Lisa stood from the car and gathered her things. "There's an idea." Without question, she started up the walk as Eve's feet padded slower and slower behind her. She wanted to think of an excuse, but the only phrase that was complete in her head was, "He's here." On Lisa's yank, Eve caught the door and stepped slowly into the house, wondering where he was and willing herself not to do anything stupid when she saw him. "And the mattress goes in," AJ said, swinging the cushion over the now completed frame. "Done." "Cool," Jeff said, nodding in satisfaction just as Lisa strode by the door. A heartbeat, and she stepped back into the doorway. "Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?" she asked in awe. She stepped over to the now fully assembled crib. "Oh, it's perfect. It's so perfect. Just a second, I'll get the bedding." "Alex is sleeping," Jeff half called as she raced from the room, and she waved to indicate she had heard. "Very nice work," Jeff said, holding his hand out to AJ, but the gesture vanished into the vision that was suddenly standing in the doorway. He had told himself that she was nothing more than a dream, that he could live without her, that she couldn't have been as incredible as he had thought she was. But with one glance at the slender frame and those solemn, uncertain eyes, all those lies disappeared. Slowly, Jeff turned to where AJ's gaze was nailed, and he smiled and stepped over to her to give her a quick hug. "Hey, Eve, have you been out spending all our money?" She looked down at the white bag in her hand and held it up. "Shoes." "Figures," Jeff said jovially, even as he kept his arm around her. "Here we are," Lisa said, pushing by the two of them with a giant plastic bag of baby bed items. Without pretense, she unzipped it and dumped it on the floor. She picked up one long padded piece of cloth and threw it to the side. "Man, where do you start with this stuff?" "Don't look at me," AJ said in mock fear. "I put the bed together." "I thought you were going to put it together," Lisa said, looking at Jeff teasingly. "He helped," Jeff said, directing a warning look at AJ. "Well, I'm glad somebody did," Lisa said as she sorted out the rest of the bag. "You need all the help you can get." "She's got a point," AJ said, knowing his only salvation was in interacting with Jeff and Lisa and not focusing on the heart-stopping beauty across the room. "Hey!" Jeff picked up a pillow and threw it squarely at AJ's chest. "What? She does." "Here, Eve, help me with this," Lisa said, and AJ noticed how reluctantly she moved from the door. When she took the sheet from Lisa, AJ took a step backward away from the crib. He watched as she leaned over the railing to pull the mattress out. However, it was heavier than she had anticipated. "Here," AJ said, instantly jumping to help her. Her gaze grazed him when he bent to help her, and the sad helplessness in it knocked him backward. Carefully, he pulled the mattress out as she put the sheet onto it. However, the sheet was barely big enough, and it slipped off a corner she had already finished. He reached for it, just as she did, and in a flash, they both jumped back from the touch. For one unbelievable second, her gaze locked with his, and then she buried her gaze in the remainder of the task. "Done," he said, dropping the mattress into the bed. He hadn't wanted to hurt her, but he had. That much was too utterly clear for words. Lisa handed him another piece of the bedding. That goes by the bars." Trying not to get tangled in Eve's sights again, he worked quickly to attach first one piece and then another until the bedding was in place. Just before he proclaimed the project finished, a small cry sounded from down the hallway. Jeff started out, but Lisa was too quick and slipped past him. In the next second, they were gone. "What about this?" Eve asked, and he heard the anger. She lifted a bumper pad. "It goes on the headboard," AJ said. He reached out for it. "Here." "I can do it," she said, yanking it away. In rapid motion, she attached the pad and stepped back. "See, Alex," Lisa said as she walked back in. "This is your new bed. Isn't it great?" AJ wanted to be proud of the accomplishment, but it was clear that at least one other person in the room was less than impressed. Reluctantly, he put his hands in his back pockets and tried to fade into the sponge paint on the wall. "How does steak sound for supper?" Jeff asked, slapping his hands together. "Oh, I've got," AJ started. "I'm supposed to," Eve started. "No, now I'm not taking no for an answer," Jeff said firmly. "We owe you guys. Besides, I'm cooking." "And that's a good thing?" AJ asked, fighting to find any sense of joking in his heart. "It's a very good thing. Trust me," Lisa said. "Okay, I'm in," AJ said, not daring to speak for Eve. "Eve?" Jeff asked. She shrugged. It was the best they were going to get. This has been White Knight, Book 2, The Courage Series, written by Staci Stallings, narrated by Becky Dowdy. Copyright 2012 by Staci Stallings. Production copyright 2014 by Staci Stallings.
Never miss a second of the story. Like and subscribe to the Staci Stallings YouTube channel today.